Shrut Kirti. I currently lead a UX research team at Lollypop Design Studio, Bangalore. So before you ask me what is a UX research team and what's a design studio, why don't we start with a few round of introductions of who you all are. So you can see two set of toilet papers here, right? I hope everyone uses that toilet paper, or how do they go about doing it? Do you use toilet papers? Yes. Yeah. Yes? Yes? I cannot hear it. Yes. So I would like everyone here to take rounds and pull out the piece of toilet paper as much as they use in their day-to-day lives. Go on. Let's get started.
What we use one time?
One time. One time, how much toilet paper you use, I want you to tear that much apart. So I just introduced myself. I'm Shrut Kirti. I lead UX research team at Lollypop Design Studio, Bangalore, and we're having a round of introductions here of the audience. So there's a toilet paper roll there. I would like you to tear as much toilet paper apart as you use it in your one-time experience in the room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good, done. So I would like to start from here. Okay. So I would like you to basically call your name, what brings you to this workshop, and as many squares that you have in this toilet paper. Can you count it for me? Just open it up. Yes. So I would like you. How many squares? Six squares. Wonderful. I would like you to tell me 6 things about you.
6 things.
Yes. That can include the name also.
My name is Negi, and I'm a digital marketing head.
Okay, great.
So and my expertise in the social media and then search engine optimization, online reputation management, and the brand advertisements.
Okay. So that's just 3.
Yes.
3 more to go. You have 6 squares.
Okay, so as well as UI and UX, I'm more interested. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you for being here.
Hello, hi. So I have to count it, right?
Yes, count how many number of squares do you have. Wish you had used some little things, right?
3. Yeah, my name is Ranisha and I'm an HR consultant and I'm basically in recruitment. Sourcing, selecting, screening and joining, consultant.
Welcome to the workshop. Thank you.
4.
4 squares.
My name is Saksena and I'm a web designer.
Web designer, okay.
And I also aware about UI UX designing, and I've done a little bit mobile app designing. So being so here, I want to learn more. And I'm very passionate and creative. And
Thank you, Sakshi.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Kanika. I have 3 squares.
Just 3 squares. Yeah, that's not what I expected from you, very honestly. But yes.
So I work here at SpeakIn in the business research and expert relations department. And I am 21 years old. And I'm recently got a dog.
Got a dog.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Manu, and I think I've got here some 4 or 5 maybe.
2 pieces, is it?
Yeah, 4. I'm not able to count.
There is
Yeah, 4 I think. Okay, so I'm an engineer.
Okay.
I'm a lawyer.
I did not catch your name, Manu, right?
My name is Manu. So yeah, I'm an actor.
Actor. Wow.
Engineer, actor, lawyer in that order.
Okay.
And that's all, right? My name and reasons.
Very smart of you, actually. That's a very clever way of doing it. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Twinkle and I'm a graphic designer. I do designing for SpeakIn and I love reading novels.
Oh, wow. Thanks. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mohit.
Uh-huh.
Basically, I have 4 pieces. So I'm software developer. I develop various kind of software like Android apps, Midas, and also I'm more focused on developing software, not basically UI, because it's time taking. It's easy, but time taking. So I work on the functionality.
But you have interest in UI?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, my name is Dev Prakash. I'm a full stack developer. So I have some work is designing also. So that's why I'm joining to this career. So I have 3.
3. So you said 3 things. Thank you.
My name is Pavan Sehgal.
Komal sir.
Pavan Sehgal.
Pavan Sehgal.
I am also a full stack developer,
Okay.
and currently I am working with PHP.NET.
Okay.
And present from my brain company is that with the software and interest in coding. And recently I want to learn more about web development as well as learning with
Welcome to the workshop. Thank you.
My name is Chandan. I took 1, I should have taken 2. But I'm from the US. I now live in Italy. I'm just here for 2 weeks. And I study management.
You're studying management. Okay. Welcome to the workshop. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ravinder Singh. Past 20 years, 25 years, I've been founder of few many companies and sold online. So now I'm looking for a new project. Simultaneously, I'm in some learning process of designing and thinking what I can keep a watch over my people.
Welcome to the workshop. Thank you. Okay, so everyone here, what do you think is design? Anyone? I mean, designers for that matter, what is design?
Look.
Look. Design is looks. Okay, what else? Anyone? Looks and things. Colors. Wow.
डिजाइन तो काफी होते हैं लेकिन एक वो डिजाइन होता है जो फर्स्ट टाइम का एक
Okay.
तो बस वही है क्रिएटिविटी कितनी होनी चाहिए डिजाइन के अंदर कुछ होता है तो उसे ध्यान में रखना है मार्केट में क्या ट्रेंड चल रहा है डिजाइन तो डिजाइन कस्टमर होते हैं पहले ये होता है कि क्या होता है मार्केट में क्या चल रहा है और वही कैसे है
I see. So, anyone else who would like?
Purpose.
Purpose. Design is purpose. Chandan, would you like to add on to that?
I think design is a personal kind of. It's a method to show your own creativity and style.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, you joined it late. May I know your name, please?
Deepak.
Deepak. So we just had an activity here where you have to tear a piece of toilet paper as much as you use in your day-to-day lives in one experience in your room. So can you do that for me?
I don't use it, so I have no idea.
Okay. How many squares there?
How many?
Squares.
2.
2.
4 squares.
Okay, great. Then introduce us about yourself with those 4 squares. 4 things about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Deepak Kalyan, and 4 things I would like to say. Design is what I think is needed in everything, and I'm pursuing civil engineering as a graduation course. So in that also whether it's structural design or an aesthetical, like in any graphic design or so. And I have moved on to design from basic arts. So I think so.
Thank you. Thank you. So guys, I heard all of you. Some say that design is looks and feels. Some say it's about creativity. Some say it's about purpose. Some say it's about your style, right? But design is a beautiful solution. More than anything, design is a beautiful solution. Just aesthetics do not make design. Design has to be a solution for people, for audiences, for you as users, right? So, when we go about talking, what is UX and UI? Anyone here knows what's UX and UI? Before joining this workshop, have you ever heard of these terms?
UX basically is the user experience,
Yes.
and then UI is the user interface.
Okay, great. So that's the full form of it. What is user experience?
User experience basically creating for the backend systems where we develop the backend system, the backend and front end, and UI is the interface, user interface where user can more interactive with the the design part.
Okay. Anyone else here would like to talk? Yes.
What we see is the UI,
Uh-huh.
and basically how we feel while using it, that's UX.
Yes, very, very aptly said, and you're also right, sir. So user experience is a very umbrella term, right? Anything that we come, across in day-to-day lives, any experience that we are having with any kind of a service, any kind of a product is basically user experience. So I think when you registered for SpeakIn, you must have had an experience of registering on SpeakIn. That is in itself an experience. Similarly, when you walked into this building, you took the lift, you came here, you went searching for things, you went and looked for the right room, right? That is again an experience that you are having. So that is also an user experience. Similarly, for product and services, I would say many products, digital products, if you ask, right? So such as Swiggy, such as Paytm, such as WhatsApp, Facebook that you use in your day-to-day life. You are having an experience using them. For Paytm, you're making a transaction. That's an experience for you, right? So that's what is user experience. Now, what's user interface, UI? It is the looks and feels which you were talking about. So design is a very, very big umbrella term under which there is user experience, and under user experience, there's also UX and UI. Okay? Now, what's design thinking? Have you heard of this term, design thinking? Anyone here? Thinking about design. Okay. First time heard of it. Never heard of it. Anyone? No one?
Design I heard about. Design thinking is
Quite new for you. Okay. So design thinking was basically coined by IDEO's CEO Tim Brown. Okay. And design thinking is basically a methodology to solve problems through a design process. Okay. So when you go about solving any problem, there has to be creativity involved. So that's where the design aspect comes into picture. And when you brainstorm ideas around it, that's where design thinking comes into picture, right? So it's a creative, innovative way of solving problems. Now, design thinking is not just cannot be applied to create designs or UX or UI interfaces. It can also be applied in day-to-day lives. For example, you are a founder, sir. Maybe you can apply design thinking in solving your business problems. Yeah. You can also use design thinking to solve your day-to-day activities. Maybe you're creating a document and you want your users to have an experience with it where you can consume the information as best as possible, right? So there also you can apply the methodology of design thinking. So that's how design thinking comes into picture at each and every step in life. So basically, there are 5 broad stages of design thinking. So the first step is basically empathizing. And what does empathize mean? The word empathize. Anyone here knows what does empathize mean?
Putting yourself in the shoes of the other person.
Exactly. That's what is empathizing. So as Kanika said rightly, it's about putting yourself in the shoes of the other person. So when you're, say, for example, solving a business problem in the case of a startup, in case of any business, or when you're creating an interface for any kind of users, you basically put yourself in the shoes of the users, try to understand what are the pain points, what are the needs this person might be having in order for him to solve this problem. What is the kind of experience he's currently having maybe that is hindering him to solve that particular kind of problem. So that's what is called empathizing and design thinking. Then second is defining. Now when you have empathized, like a lot of you here must have been at various points in your life where you feel that you have come across a situation where people must have said that you must think from other person's shoes, right? So when you saw that or you went there, you must have thought, okay, this is the problem that the person is trying to have. Similarly, in design thinking also, defining the problem comes from first understanding the user. So once you have understood the other person, understood the other product or service, that's when you go about clearly defining the problem. Because without which you cannot understand where is the problem. So hence, in order to do that, you first have to understand the user and then go about defining it. Now, how do you go about defining a problem? So I might say that I might be having a problem, maybe viewing my slide on this projector. So that is how might I solve the problem of viewing this slide on the projector is defining a problem. So that's how you go about defining a problem. Okay. Similarly, ideating. So next step in the design thinking process is ideating. So once you have understood who is the user, you have identified what is the problem that the user is facing, where are the gaps in his experience, then you go about solutioning. So ideating is about brainstorming all the possible solutions that can solve this problem. So basically, ideating is a very broad and very important step in the entire design thinking process, which helps you come up with many possible solutions. Also, there cannot be just one possible solutions. I would request everyone here that this is the step where there are absolutely no judgments involved. I mean, because again, design, as many of you said, that it's a creative process. So when creativity comes into picture, almost everything is possible. Almost everything. You can think of a very, very absurd solution also. But yes, if it is a solution, it can be a possible solution. That is something that you can test out in the later stages. But at this point of time, all the possible solutions can be entertained. The next step is prototyping. Now you have, say for example, thought about various solutions in mind to solve certain problems. The next step for you to do is experiment. This is the step where you actually go out and create a prototype, an experimental thing where you can test it out with real users. So for example, if I am using a new interface and I have designed it, I have defined a problem that it is intended to solve, maybe make a transaction online, a financial transaction. I have designed an interface. Now I want to test it out, because if I do not test it out, I won't be able to understand whether it actually functions or not. And even if it functions, maybe there is a possibility that there is still a gap in the experience that I am giving to my user. So that's where prototyping comes into picture, and you have to first do that kind of an experiment and take your actual prototype out in the real world to get an understanding of whether it is working or not. And lastly, test it out. Prototype, once it's ready, you test it out with real users. I mean, it does seem like it's a linear process, but no, design thinking is never a linear process. I would like to say here that maybe it is possible that you can just go about empathizing and defining the problem, because that's where in itself solves the problem. Maybe in the case of a startup founder, where he goes and understands for his own business segment that this is the kind of problem they are facing, and he defines that this is the problem that I need to solve for, and then he forms a strategy. Or maybe in other cases where you people, where you're graphic designing, where you try to understand that for my intended audience, this is what the problem they are facing. Maybe the font, the text that I am portraying is not readable. That's a problem in itself, and you go about solving it. So it can either stop there, or it can also come directly to a prototype where you create multiple versions of your test design, and you go out and test it out with real users. So that is also possible. It can go the other way around also, that you have a test product with you already. Maybe you have developed a dashboard, or maybe you have developed a UI, a final developed screen. Now you want to understand whether it is functional or not. Maybe you can go back and test it out and see, and then define a problem, figure out what is working and what is not working. Or you can first create a prototype, just a screen, not a functional thing, but just a prototype, a model, and you can go about figuring out other solutions also for it. So it is not at all a linear process. It is a bidirectional, many to many relationship that happens within design thinking. Okay. So, any questions here? First of all, I would like to ask. Any doubts? Any questions? Anything that is very, very difficult to grasp?
This test can be done only when after integration with the say other platforms.
But
It is independent. The design is independent to be tested.
it can be independently tested. It is not necessary that you actually do it in the end. For that matter, I would like to say that a prototype can be just anything. It can be just a screen. It can be a wireframe. A lot of you are, I'm not sure whether you understand a wireframe, but a wireframe is a skeleton, right? It is not an actual, aesthetically pleasing screen, but it's just a skeleton screen which helps you understand the flow of information. So it can be just that. It can be a developed application. It can be an application which is in beta version that also can be tested. Anything else? Any doubts, any questions? Great. So what's the relationship between user experience and design thinking then? So I think user experience, like I said, is a very umbrella term, right? Now how you go about solving the problem or how you go about delivering that kind of an experience is something that the design thinking process can help you relate with. I mean, using the design thinking process, you can actually provide the user and understand the user to a level that you solve a problem for him. Through those various steps, you basically help him give the best experience possible. Maybe you start off by understanding him, by understanding what is his context, what is his environment, what are the issues that he facing, going about his usual workflow for a particular problem, and then integrating that and creating a design or a prototype for it, and then testing it out and ultimately giving an experience. And again, like I said, it's an iterative process. So it does not happen just once. You have to do it multiple times in order to see that it is actually working and it is doing what it is intended to do. So before we head, I would like you, all people here, you can see blank sheets, papers, sticky notes with you. So I would like to give you a problem here, and so I would like to understand first. How many of you people stay alone and with families? Family? Everyone with family? No, alone. Okay. How many of you find it difficult to work things, your daily chores, to work them out on your own? Or how many of you do them on their own? What kind of chores? Do you clean your house on your own? Okay. Do you clean your loo on your own?
I do everything.
Everything, right? Family people, how do they go about doing it?
I do all by myself.
All by yourself. You don't have any help?
Also.
All by myself. Okay. How many of you would like to have some kind of a help? Just one? Nobody else would like to have some kind of a help?
Every time.
Right?
But we have to do that. Yeah, we need help sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Not often.
Okay. So I would like you to create an interface, create an application, okay, where you have to find a buy for yourself, a maid. Okay. Find a maid. What is the challenge that you face when you are doing day-to-day activities, right? You go about cleaning your house every day. You go about cleaning your room every day, cooking every day, right? Now, if you have to find a buy, how do you go about finding a buy? I want you to come up with an application, an interface, an idea to basically do that. You have this sheet of paper. I have given you two screens. I just want you to come up with two screens here. So, based on the design thinking process that we just understood, right? Here, you go about this, right? These are the various phases. Now, based on this, how would you go about finding a buy for yourself using an application? Very different kind of ideas, right? Some of us actually, when presented, their ideas were tested out. They were proven wrong, or they were proven, somewhat correct, and they had to improve upon. There were some who presented ideas, and there were challenges around those ideas, such as language, such as context of where the maid or the person or user would be. And there were some who came up with a very functional idea, and there were some who were thinking about design. So again, let me reiterate the definition of design here, or the what is design? It's a beautiful solution. It cannot be just aesthetic. So when you say that it has to be, yes, it has to be a beautiful solution, but it has to be functional, it has to be usable, it has to be useful. Without being all of this, it cannot be aesthetic, right? So I think all of us here try to bring our own aspect of it, but it was not a complete solution as it is. So I think, we have learned a lot. If I'm not wrong, tell me if I'm wrong here. I would say the team one here presented an idea where it was more towards going about different kinds of maids and different kinds of functionalities that the app can provide. Team two provided a very systematic filter-wise option, a hierarchical presentation of information. Whereas team three gave a very business-oriented, very practically possible solution, which is taking into context the environment of the maid, of who will be using the application, what is possible in terms of business, in terms of ethics around business, legally what is possible, not possible. So I think this all makes what is a design of a particular application. It is not just one functionality that just giving or shipping out a feature will help you do that, or making it very aesthetically pleasing will do that. But yes, as rightly told by Chandan, also there's a lot of information, clutter that was there in all of your screens. No doubt, a lot of information is required, because when you're going about getting a maid, you definitely have to verify his or her credentials. And for that matter, nobody here looked into the criminal record of the maid, which is a very, very high possibility in the Indian context. So again, bringing those kind of things into picture and making it seem very, very presentable, very, very beautiful, yet clutter-free, yet very visual and hierarchical is something what the design does. So I think all of us try to solve the problem here, but yes, there's not just one solution. Over the period of time, when we test out the application with the real users, then we get to understand what is the problem. It is, yes, you have a question? Yes. So I think, that is how it is about. Now coming back to what is design thinking and where it can find use. So this was just an example where finding a maid itself became such a huge challenge. There were so many perspectives that came in. Similarly, there are many other such problems in our day-to-day life that we go about solving. We can use the same technique where we think as the shoes of the user. We go about solving the problem just like a user. Like as if we are solving the problem, we try to empathize, we try to define the problem for us and maybe come out with functionalities, maybe come out with problem statements and brainstorm what can be the possible solutions around it, and then actually test it out with the real users. So that is what is design thinking and user experience about. So this holistically makes what a beautiful experience for a user. Right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Any questions?
You have a question?
I hope it was a fun session. It's quite.
No. If we are strictly talking about the design part, like if we have completely selected whatever we need to present and what we need to keep in mind while presenting. Like every app, if it matches the theme what we are providing to the user, it looks better to the user also.
Themes? What do you mean by theme?
Like if normally if anyone is designing a like say an app for some sports facilities, and it's meant to be an app that if that app has a look that is sporty. And normally if not, it will look good.
Yes. So that's where the understanding empathize parts comes in. When you go about empathizing, that's where you try to understand the user as to what they would like, as to what are their needs, what is the look and feel that they would appreciate, what are the pain points, what are the opportunities that they would like to grab upon, or where we can provide them a solution with. So this all comes into the design aspect, and hence when I say design, it's inclusive of UX and UI and complete visual and look and feel as well as the functionality.
मैम जो डिजाइन का स्ट्रक्चर है वो डेवलपर को डिजाइनर बनाते हैं.
Yes, I'm coming to that aspect also, because I felt a lot of people here thought that it's just a one person's job. No, it is not. This entire thing that happens, there's a whole bunch of people who are involved. So empathy part, so there's a role that is emerged in the industry called a UX researcher. So I at Lollypop basically lead the UX research team. So the researchers basically go about out in the context of the users to understand what is bothering them, who they are. To give you an example, and if I may, can you please switch on the projector please, just once. whole bunch of people who just go out in the context of the user to understand what are the who is the user? Who is basically a user? Is he a farmer? Is he a maid? Is he a young person like you? Is he a millennial? What are his challenges? What does his daily routine look like? And at what point in time he or she might use the application? So this is one of the applications that I worked on personally, and this is quite a acclaimed application. So this is meant for the Indian farmer. Now, in order to create an application for the Indian farmer, it was relevant for us that we go onto the field to understand the farmer. Now, Indian farmer comes with a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of sensitivity attached with a farmer in the Indian context. So we had to go and understand what kind of practices do they follow. What is the workflow of their activities? When do they wake up? When do they have time to actually look at an app? And whether are they marginally literate or are they fully literate? How tech savvy they are? Are they even using smartphones? And to our surprises, when we actually went about and actually looked at the application, the farmers in the real context, we found out that most of the farmers were not using a smartphone. They only had a feature phone. So when we came back, it was a very big revelation for us. How are we going to create an application when they do not even use it? So then we understood that we are creating an application which will be used by them in the near future. That's an emerging audience that we are targeting for. Now, how do we create an application for a person who has never used a smartphone? You, me, everyone has some sort of a tech experience. We have been using laptops, we have been using mobile phones, we have been using desktops for some time. But these farmers, they have not been using anything. How do we go about designing an application? This farmer, when he used to hold a smartphone in his hand, used to scare and fear away. Used to feel fearful. Just because, he used to feel that it's a foreign object, it's a scareful entity. How do you go about designing a thing for it? So this is where the empathy part comes into picture. Then the second part of defining the problem and going about looking for solutions. There's a whole bunch of people known as UX designers who actually look into this, try to create wireframes like skeleton screens, which talk about the hierarchy of information where all should be there, and try to make it as less clutter-free as possible. And then there's a whole bunch where the look and feel aspect comes into picture. So who are the UI designers who basically go about beautifying it, but in a sense that would be aesthetically pleasing, at the same time which will take into consideration the context of the user. Now in this case, it is possible that when the other part of the application for the maid, when the maid is using the application, she or he might be using it in bright, broad sunlight. Now if the colors and contrast of the application are not fit to that environment, will he or she be able to use it? Similar to an Uber or Ola. When you look at an Uber or Ola, the colors that you see, they are very much in two shades. Just because of the reason that it's more readable and more discoverable when in bright broad sunlight. So similar things have to be pointed out when creating a solution. So these minute things create a huge impact in the way user experience is developed for a product.
Then what solution did you make when people didn't have
Android? Yes. So, we created a solution for an emerging target audience. This audience was very less tech savvy. So, in order to incorporate it, we used multiple pictures. So, again, connectivity is a problem there. So, instead of pictures, there's something called an illustration. So, if you see this is an illustration. This is actually not a stock image or any picture, but it's an illustration, watercolor illustration drawn over software. So, this renders well in low connectivity areas. And people used to actually look at this instead of real images. So even if you see, look at the crop, if it's onion farmer and he's looking at the crop prices for onion. So instead of actually showing in real image, we showed the illustration so that he could identify it, but at the same time it flows. That is one of the things. Secondly,
your app was useful to farmers, right? They had to notice the rates and all. They didn't have Android. Then what did the solution?
So as a marketing strategy, the client, the person, the farm price client that we were actually solving the application for, they came up with a marketing strategy where they used to sell, promote their application through a smartphone. So they used to give the smartphone to a farmer with the app installed in itself.
See, rather than doing all this stuff, delivering mobile phones, which is a very expensive fare, and misuse whatever.
वो भी था. That was also there. But again, to make it more successful and to just reach to people on the ground.
To make it attractive.
Yeah.
Mobile मिलेगा तो पूरे गांव.
Exactly. तो वो बहुत हेल्प है ना farmers हैं. That's right. So this is one of the examples that I would like to show. Yeah. Thank you people. Thank you everyone for